Episode 116, A Night Outside Her Window. No, it needs to be locked, Dalen told Lucia. Lucia hated being commanded around by Dalen. It made her feel that she wasn't as equal in this relationship as she'd wanted to be. This always annoyed Lucia. Fine. Lucia closed the window irritatedly and climbed into her bed. She lay down on the bed with her cell phone on her pillow next to her head. The call was still active. Lucia closed her eyes and felt sleepy. Dalen, did you leave? She asked. Nope. Lucia's sleepiness intensified. When she opened her mouth again, her voice was very weak. Dalen, are you still there? Here. Lucia instantly walked up to the window and saw a tired-looking Dalen waving back at her. Why are you out of your bed again? I told you to sleep, right? How can I sleep when I know you were standing right outside my window? So do you want me to jump in? I mean, I don't mind, but I've heard your dad doesn't want us to meet. Dalen teased Lucia. No, don't come in. I mean, we can talk. I like talking to you, but we seldom talk much about us. Oh, so what are you saying? That you and I are now us? Is Mrs. Patrick trying to mend bridges here? Lucia immediately blushes when Dalen refers to her as Mrs. Patrick. I see I can make my wife blush through my words as well. Are you finally falling for me, Mrs. Patrick? Dalen teases her again. You are impossible to be serious around. I was just kidding. I love to work you up. Although it would have been better if I could get you all worked up some other way. Dalen had a very naughty expression on his face. They continued talking for a long time until Lucia's eyes started drooping with sleep. Lucia finally felt at ease in Dalen's company. She felt cared for, heard, and loved by this handsome man. It's time to hit the bed now, Lucia. I promise I'll sleep too if you agree to go to sleep now. Lucia agreed. They'd still not hung up the phone. Dalen wanted to ensure Lucia was sound asleep before leaving. Finally, Lucia's breathing evened, and it was obvious she was asleep. Dalen threw away the cigarette in his hand and crushed it under his black leather shoe before leaving. Mr. Elrod, who'd walked up to the window in his room, saw the entire scene. The next morning, Lucia woke up in the morning to find her cell phone still on the line. She couldn't believe it. Dalen? Came Dalen's voice on the other end of the line. You're awake? Lucia asked. Yes. I was asleep. Why didn't you hang up? Lucia asked, puzzled. I forgot. Lucia couldn't believe it. How could he forget about something like this? Thank you for last night, though, Lucia said, smiling on the phone. Is my wife blushing again? No. Now go sleep for a while. Later, Lucia went to her father's room to check on him. He was already awake. Lucia gave him some medicine for the pain. I want to see Dalen, Mr. Elrod said. Lucia paused with a cup of water halfway to her mouth. She was a little nervous. Why do you want to see him? I have something to talk to him about. You can tell me. I'll let him know. It's the same, Lucia said. How is that the same? Her father said, lifting his eyebrow. Or I can tell him. Lucia thought for a moment and said, No need. I'll tell him myself. There are some things that must be resolved. Dad, don't worry about it. I can solve whatever it is myself. Lucia's heart thumped as she hurriedly said, Do you not want me to see him? If that is so, then please leave the room because I have no intent to talk to you. Mr. Elrod slammed his hand against the table. Okay, fine. I'll call him. After Lucia left the room, she didn't know how to continue the call. What had gotten into her father? What was he going to solve with Dalen? Judging from his attitude towards Dalen, it should be easy to guess, right? Her father must be wanting to convince Dalen to divorce her. If Mr. Elrod had helped her like this in the past, Lucia would definitely be very happy. But now Lucia's heart felt heavy. It felt like she was suffocating in water, just when she had started to think differently about Dalen. Lucia worried about her father's reaction if she didn't call Dalen over. She didn't want things to go the other way around, but she didn't want to disappoint her father as well. She already regretted losing so much time with him, and that is not what she was going to repeat. She still hoped that a miracle would happen for him. Lucia squatted on the stairs and called Dalen. She was still sitting on the steps minutes later when Dalen arrived. Seeing Dalen, Lucia's eyes started to burn. Perhaps this person would no longer have anything to do with her in the future. He was going to be her only family soon, but it really didn't matter anymore. The ending she had been looking forward to was going to come in one full swoop. Dalen reached down and held her hand, pulling her up to stand. She stood a step higher than Dalen, so her line of sight was almost at the same level as Dalen. "Why are you sitting on the ground?" he asked. "It's cool," Lucia lied. Dalen's hand circled around and grabbed Lucia's butt with his hand. "You're right. Icy cold," he teased. The heat from his palm penetrated her clothes and reached her skin. It felt like her entire body was heating up. Lucia's face flushed a little. She turned away from him and said, "My dad has something to tell you." Lucia followed him into the room. "Lucia, can you please give me some privacy with Dalen here?" her dad said to Lucia. "Why should I go out? What is so important that you can't discuss in front of me?" "I need to talk to Dalen alone," her dad insisted. Just as Lucia was about to keep arguing, Dalen said in a deep voice, "Go outside." Lucia bit her lip and left the room. After leaving, she took 2 steps forward, then turned around and put her ear against the door. But the door swung open, and Dalen's tall and straight figure appeared in front of her. "Downstairs," he said. "All right." Lucia turned to leave. Dalen closed the door and walked to the bed. Mr. Elrod began. "Lucia has never been an easy child, especially since her mother's death. She rebels at almost everything that I ask of her. However, she listens to you, which worries me the most. Can you understand the worries of a father?" Dalen narrowed his eyes and did not say anything. "I owe her so much. I was too busy with my career to take my family into account. After her mother died, I thought that my daughter would lead an ordinary life, as we had planned for her. A man who matches our status. We are very ordinary people. But you, that's why when I heard about your marriage with my daughter, I couldn't believe it. Lucia is a very simple child. She doesn't understand the ways and means of your society. I tried to pursue her to break this marriage, but she just won't listen. It's just that this child couldn't understand my intentions at all." Mr. Elrod hadn't spoken this much in days, and his face immediately showed exhaustion. "I don't think you called me here to ask me to divorce her. You can speak directly. Save your strength," Dalen said. Mr. Elrod smiled weakly. It was a very stressful thing to deal with Dalen, to see how sharp he was. This was also the reason why Dalen had so much power at such a young age. It was as if he was born to be strong. Could Lucia be happy with such a person? If he could be good to her now, what would happen in the future? "That is indeed the case. No matter what you promise me, I won't believe it. And you might not like my terms as well. You can choose or not choose. Don't try to take Lucia away by force either. If I force her to choose, she will definitely stay by my side," Mr. Elrod said. He was confident on this point. He understood his daughter. Lucia was walking around downstairs, but she couldn't stop pacing. What were they talking about? Were they arguing? They shouldn't be, right? Since her father was so sick, Dalen probably wouldn't engage in an argument with him. Could it be that when her father asked for their divorce, Dalen would agree? Just as Lucia was thinking about why it was taking so long, she saw an unfamiliar man in an expensive suit walking in. "Excuse me, who are you?" she asked. I'm Mr. Patrick's lawyer, he answered. Lawyer? Dalen asked you to come? Lucia was surprised. Why would he call you here? The lawyer responded, I'm not sure. Where's the room? Can I trouble you to take me there? Lucia took him upstairs. Lucia was walking in front when she suddenly stopped. Did he call you regarding any divorce case? She asked. Yes, I am, the lawyer answered. For whom? It's for me. My ex-wife won, the lawyer answered. Lucia tried to peek inside when she let the lawyer into her father's room. Episode 117, I'll Make You Regret Everything. Before Lucia could see what was going on in her father's room, the door was shut behind the lawyer. Lucia could only go downstairs and wait. This wait was extremely torturous. She knew that if her father really insisted that she divorce Dalen, they'd have no other choice. But shouldn't she be present for the divorce? After dealing with Dalen and Lucia, Mr. Elrod said, My will has been signed. Then he took out the will from the drawer and gave it to the lawyer, who read it carefully. His expression was somewhat surprised. The lawyer's eyes flashed with a sharp glint. According to the severity of your illness, I need to confirm it again. What did you leave for your own daughter? Mr. Elrod thought about it and said, My company, the money in my bank card, this villa, an old country house, and 2 other properties. What was left to your wife and her daughter? The lawyer asked. 1 property, Mr. Elrod said with no regret. Are you sure? Yeah. Is there a problem? Nope. The lawyer glanced at Dalen. He did not say anything, but it was clear that he was hiding something. Time was too slow, and it was a long wait. Lucia's body tensed up when she saw Dalen and the lawyer coming downstairs. The lawyer nodded to Lucia and left. Lucia, however, did not notice his nod and gesture. She had been paying attention to Dalen's expression the whole time. What did my dad tell you? Lucia asked nervously. Nothing of importance, Dalen answered. Then why were you in there for so long? I don't believe it, Lucia said. Dalen saw the dissatisfaction in her clear eyes. He reached out his hand to hold her chin and gently brushed her lips with his thumb. Then he leaned in close to her. What else do you want to ask? Dalen said. Why don't I want to? Lucia's question was interrupted as Dalen kissed her. Dalen's thin lips slightly moved back, and he said in a low voice, Is that enough? Lucia pursed her lips, her face red. It wasn't that Lucia didn't understand what Dalen meant. She just wanted to know the content. But Dalen wouldn't tell her. What did the lawyer come here for? To make a will. Lucia's face paled. Was it my father's request? Yes. I'm going to see my dad. She headed up the stairs. When Dalen returned to the car, the lawyer was waiting for him. Then he handed the will to Dalen. Dalen's face turned cold before he could even look at it. After he finished looking at it, the air around him suddenly turned sinister and malicious. What Mr. Elrod dictated was exactly the opposite of what was written in the will. If he hadn't called his own lawyer at the right time, the will would have come true. Will fights like this are commonplace. Some even kill others for their family's wealth, the lawyer said. This will, I think, must have something to do with the former lawyer. Dalen's eyebrows twitched and his gaze turned sharp. Change the will back and let Mr. Elrod sign it again. It'd be best if you do not mention this matter to him or the family. All right. At noon, Lucia was giving Mr. Elrod medicine when Barbara and Macy returned. Sheldon, are you feeling better now? Look at me. I'm busy. I only have just a moment. It's really impossible for the company to not have you. Hurry up and get better, Barbara said with a worried expression. Lucia felt that she was being hypocritical, and there was no sign of sadness in Barbara's face. It was like she was tired of the company. Macy also said from the side, That's right, Dad. Hurry up and get better. Mom and I are really worried about you. Mr. Elrod didn't say anything. He just leaned on the bed and closed his eyes to rest. However, his face still didn't look good. Have you two finished? When you're done, go out, Lucia said coldly. Lucia, I know you don't like Macy and me, but do you really have to be so angry? I've always seen you as my own child. Your father and I have a marriage. Your father is sick right now, so even if you don't want to see me again, you should be sympathetic. Barbara's words seemed to be filled with grievance, but it was actually a lecture to Lucia. Lucia had never seen anyone with such a disgusting face. If it wasn't for her father being seriously ill, she definitely wouldn't have let Barbara and her daughter off so easily. Barbara seemed to have finished lecturing Lucia, so she stopped talking about her. She turned to Mr. Elrod and asked, I heard that a lawyer came today? Lucia frowned slightly. Was he here to make a will? She asked. How did you know that a lawyer was here to make a will? Lucia asked, suspicious of her stepmother's motives for visiting. I'm his wife, am I not? Why would I not know? Lucia, you certainly aren't good at keeping track of what happens in this household. You don't even know when your dad is sick. Have you said enough? Just leave, Mr. Elrod yelled out of the blue. It was hard for him to breathe. His face paled and he nearly passed out. Don't be so excited. Sheldon, I didn't say anything. You are more important, Barbara said hypocritically. Macy asked, Dad, did you give your will to a lawyer? Mr. Elrod took a few breaths before saying, Here, do you have something to say? What should I say? Macy purposely provoked Mr. Elrod. Lucia felt her father's hand shaking. She tried to comfort him. Dad, don't get upset. I'm here. Dad. Mr. Elrod took a deep breath. I'm fine. Barbara and Macy looked at each other and smiled viciously behind their backs. Since you don't want to look at us, then we'll go. Barbara turned around and left with Macy. Lucia looked at them coldly as they left. Then she followed. Barbara and Macy were too concerned with themselves and the will. They didn't notice Lucia at all. When they were walking down the stairs, Lucia followed angrily and pushed Macy with hatred looming large within her. Ah! Macy yelled as she bumped into Barbara, who was in front of her. The two of them screamed and slipped through a couple of stairs. Lucia watched them coldly. Barbara sat on the floor, leaning against the wall and unable to get up for a long time. Am I bleeding? My face hurts, Macy asked. Barbara's heart turned cold when she saw her daughter's face. She yelled back up at Lucia. Why are you so ruthless? Aren't you afraid of the consequences? Not at all, Lucia said indifferently. Just you wait. One day I'll make you regret everything, Barbara said as she pulled her daughter away. Lucia sneered. Lucia walked down the stairs and looked at the frightened servant who stood there motionlessly. She asked, You're the one that Barbara hired, right? The servant looked frightened. Yes, but I didn't do anything. If you didn't do anything, then how would Barbara know that the lawyer had come? Did you tell her? Lucia asked, with fire in her eyes. Episode 118, Karma is a dish best served cold. The servant stammered. Don't let me see you working behind my back with Barbara again, or you won't be here anymore. Do you understand? Lucia asked. Yes, ma'am. After Mr. Elrod fell asleep, Lucia also went back to her room to nap. She did not know how long she'd been asleep, but she was awakened soon. She had no nightmares. What was going on? Why did she wake up? Lucia's bad mood surged. She quickly got off the bed and left the room. She headed straight for her father's room. Her anxious breathing was painful. Her father was sleeping on the bed. It was very quiet. Lucia walked over and saw that one of his hands hung off the edge of the bed. She wanted to pick it up and lay it back on the bed. However, when she touched his hand, it was cold. Shivers ran down her spine. "Dad?" Lucia called him softly. Mr. Elrod did not react. Lucia called out again, her voice getting louder and more hurried. "Dad! Dad!" Lucia touched her father's body. It was completely cold and stiff. She rubbed his hand fearfully, as if she was going to heat it up. "Dad, don't scare me. You're just taking a nap, right? Dad, open your eyes and look at me. Mom, don't let Dad leave me. Don't." Lucia's body went limp, and she fell to her knees. Her vision turned dark, and she fell to the ground. Lucia woke up in her own bed. The first thing she saw when she opened her eyes was Dalen, who was standing beside her. Lucia pulled Dalen's sleeves and asked nervously, "Where's my dad? What about my father?" "Lucia?" Dalen started, but he stopped. He looked at her with pity. "No, I have to go see him. He still needs to take some medicine." Lucia let go of Dalen and immediately got off the bed. Dalen wrapped his arms around her from behind, his broad chest trapping her. "He died," Dalen said simply. Lucia was stunned for a few seconds. She seemed to be digesting Dalen's words. And then she shook her head in shock. "I don't believe it. You're lying to me. My dad just fell asleep. He just fell asleep. Dalen, tell me he's sleeping." Dalen hugged her tightly. Seeing Lucia cry made his heart tighten. "I don't have anything. My mom is gone. My dad is gone. I don't have anything." Lucia turned and buried her head in Dalen's chest and cried. "You have me." Dalen lifted her chin. Lucia's tears filled his usually cold and soft-hearted heart. "I will always be by your side." Lucia stared at him blankly. "Do you want to know what your father said the other day?" Dalen said. "What did he say?" Lucia whispered. "He said that the last thing he wanted was for me to leave you, or else he would not be at ease when he left. Is that what you want?" Dalen tried to keep his voice even, but he was worried Lucia would say yes. After thinking for a moment, Lucia shook her head, but her heart ached and tears fell. Dalen hugged her again and said in a low and hoarse voice, "You can cry, but you have to let me hold you." Lucia laid on Dalen's chest, crying out all the sadness in her heart. She would only feel good if she cried out her sorrow. After a while, Lucia's tears slowed, and she would only occasionally sob. At least she had calmed down. On the day of her father's funeral, Lucia cried again, but she was able to keep herself together. Cole, dressed in black, walked up to Lucia, his eyes red. "Lucia, don't be too sad. Your dad would want you to be happy, and we will always be there for you." "Thank you." Lucia's voice was choked with sobs. Axel also came. Tears fell from Lucia's eyes as she looked at him walk up to her. "Lucia, please take care of your grief." Somehow, Axel always knew just what to say. "I know," Lucia said. "I want to see you happy and carefree like before." Lucia nodded with tears streaming down her face. Dalen, who was at her side, had a cold look in his eyes. Mr. Elrod's black and white photo was placed on the table by his coffin. Lucia watched with burning eyes. Spencer walked over. "Mr. Patrick, Barbara and her daughter are here." "Where's the lawyer?" Dalen narrowed his fierce eyes. "He's here too." After Mr. Elrod died, naturally, it was time to announce his will. Barbara and her daughter walked in one after the other, barely hiding their excitement. When Macy saw Dalen, she cowered behind Barbara in fear. Barbara was doing her best to play the role of a grieving widow. She saw her late husband's photo and was about to cry over the coffin, but she was stopped by Dalen's bodyguard. Barbara's crying expression immediately froze, and she said, "Why don't you let me cry for him? He's my husband." Then she pulled Macy over. "And this is his daughter, his favorite daughter in life." Lucia said coldly, "You don't have to pretend to cry." Barbara's expression immediately turned ugly, but with Dalen's presence, she didn't dare to show it. Dalen pulled Lucia to him and sat down beside her. The lawyer had arrived and everyone moved to sit down. When Barbara and Macy pulled over chairs, Dalen opened his mouth. "Don't bother. You won't be here long." Barbara and Macy froze on the spot. The lawyer began to read the will. When the reading was finished, Barbara and Macy could not believe their ears. "What did you say? There's nothing left for Macy and me? Impossible!" Barbara completely forgot she was supposed to be sad. She went up and took the will from the lawyer's hand. Barbara looked at the will as well as her husband's signature. She couldn't understand why the will had changed. The will should have been the one she changed. She thought everything was going well. She thought she had won the bet. Barbara looked at the lawyer, Dalen, and Lucia. "You changed the will, right? How could my own husband not leave anything behind for me and Macy?" At least in the first will they had been left a property. There was nothing left now. The lawyer had been replaced. Dalen must be behind this. The lawyer's eyes flashed as he said, "Black and white. I believe the two of you already know this clearly. There's no need to say any more." "I won't accept such a will. I'll sue you." Barbara was on the verge of going crazy. She couldn't accept it. "What are you still standing there for? Throw her out," Dalen said to his men. Episode 119, You Came by Yourself. After that, Barbara and Macy were thrown out of the villa like two pieces of trash. No matter how much they cried, it didn't help. The lawyer left after he was done with his business. Lucia was still standing there in a daze. "What are you thinking about?" Dalen asked her. "Are you pitying them?" "Why should I pity them? They're not worth it." Lucia was not at all kind-hearted or pitiful. "They have been leeches in my family for so many years. It was enough for them to be arrogant. They deserve it." Lucia paused for a moment. With a glint in her eyes, she asked uncomfortably, "Do you think I'm bad?" "Not bad," Dalen said. "You're right. Compared to you, I am too kind." Lucia smiled. Dalen's fingers caressed the tender skin on her face. "You should get some sleep." Although Lucia's eyes were wide open, her eyelids felt exceptionally heavy. It was as if her long eyelashes couldn't even be lifted. "I'm not sleepy," she argued. "You didn't sleep much last night," Dalen said, looking worried. "Well, you haven't closed your eyes since yesterday. At least I slept for a few hours," Lucia said. Dalen smiled evilly. "If you want to sleep with me, just say it." "I didn't mean that." Lucia felt more awake after Dalen's presumption. Dalen scooped her into his arms, and her hands instinctively hooked around Dalen's broad shoulders. "Let's go to sleep," Dalen said, as he kissed the side of her head. After getting into the bed, Lucia fell asleep within seconds. She hadn't slept properly since she found out her dad was sick. Even if she did fall asleep, it was restless with worry. Every morning she woke up earlier than the sun and did not have enough sleep. How could her body withstand it? She had lost a lot of weight. Dalen's black eyes stared warmly at Lucia's sleeping face. After a long time, he finally took her into his embrace. Lucia slept until the next morning. When she woke up, there was a moment where she thought she was still in her dad's house and that he was still in the next room. However, after the surge of emotions coursed through her body, she remembered that it wasn't a dream and that her dad was really gone. She raised her head and looked at Dalen's sleeping face. She thought, if Dalen wasn't here, would she have calmed down so easily? Lucia didn't know. She was grateful Dalen was by her side. But then she remembered Bianca and him in the hospital. Lucia's expression changed when she thought of Bianca. Then Dalen opened his eyes. Lucia looked slightly uncomfortable as she broke away from her embrace and sat up on the bed. However, Dalen quickly pulled her back over. Ah! Lucia was shocked as she laid on Dalen's chest. You're not sleeping? Dalen's voice was low and magnetic. Yes, I've slept well, Lucia said. Let me kiss you. Dalen reached up and put his hand on the back of her head. Why do you need to kiss me when you haven't even finished sleeping? Lucia's face was as red as rouge. Lucia immediately ran away from Dalen and ran towards the bathroom. Good morning, no kiss. Dalen looked at Lucia, who had regained her spirit, and his eyes showed a sparkling smile. If he really did kiss her, would she be able to run away? They left for her dad's house to take care of some business. When they were about to leave, Lucia turned around and looked at the place where she grew up. Dalen, I want to come back once a week to visit. She didn't want to leave behind her childhood memories. All right, Dalen said, grabbing her hand and leading her back to the car. When they got back to the mansion, Bianca was standing at the entrance. She seemed to have waited for a long time. Lucia looked through the window at Bianca. Dalen naturally saw her. His expression was so cold that it sent chills down her spine. Spencer quickly got out of the car to deal with Bianca. Lucia did not speak or make a fuss. She simply headed back to her old bedroom and went to close the door behind her. Dalen was even faster than her, though, and stopped the door from closing. Lucia, you're in the wrong room. No, this is my room, Lucia argued. I thought we agreed to no longer sleep in separate rooms. Dalen was worried. I'm in mourning! Lucia flew into a rage and threw the thing in her hand at him. Dalen dodged and grabbed the thing with one hand. It was Lucia's cell phone. Dalen finally gave up and let the door shut. He heard the lock click. Dalen turned around and saw Spencer, who was not far away, and his face darkened. If you let Bianca get near here in the future, you'll regret it. Dalen's expression was as cold as an icehouse. Yes, sir. Spencer looked down, avoiding eye contact. Call Edward over. After a while, Edward walked over to him. Mr. Patrick, what orders do you have? Why isn't this room locked? Dalen said, pointing to Lucia's room. It was my mistake. Edward lowered his head. He had left it open in case Lucia wanted it. As a qualified underling, what the master said was the truth, but Edward also had to do what was right. He would do whatever he had to do. In the evening, Lucia prepared to take a bath, but found no supplies in the bathroom. Since she'd been sharing a room with Dalen, she had already taken over everything that she needed. There wasn't even a towel. Lucia went straight to bed. She slept alone anyway, so Dalen wasn't there to insist that she washed. No one could tell her what to do. How nice. Lucia put her hand on the bedside table to grab her phone. Only then did she remember that she had thrown it at Dalen. She had been so angry. She curled up in the bed and realized that she was lonely. In the other room, Dalen leaned back in the bed and flipped through Lucia's phone. Then he went to her messages. There were only a few people she messaged regularly, and they were all colleagues from the company. Dalen himself as a contact in her messages. Lucia had been asleep for a while, finally sleeping comfortably. When she turned over, her body once again rubbed against something. It was warm and soft. Lucia opened her eyes in a daze. She could see Dalen lying very close to her. Lucia blinked her eyes a few more times and realized that this was not a dream. Besides, the room wasn't hers. She was back in Dalen's room. Dalen, why am I here? She had obviously slept in her own bed last night. You came by yourself. Did you forget? Dalen said sleepily. Me? How? Lucia was slightly stupefied. You were sleepwalking and came to my bed by yourself. Dalen looked at her with interest. His black pupils were as vast as the universe. How come I didn't know I was sleepwalking? I've never sleepwalked before. Could it be, Lucia thought, that she was suffering from sleepwalking because of her dad's death? I don't know what else to tell you. Dalen had a triumphant look in his eyes. Lucia lowered her head and asked angrily, Did I take off my clothes too? Episode 120, An Impressive Entrance. That would be my doing. Dalen accepted confidently. Why did you take my clothes off? Lucia asked angrily. You asked me to. Dalen was still looking at her as if he'd won a grand prize. Lucia's face flushed red as she gnashed her teeth. She turned around and was about to get off the bed, but she was grabbed by Dalen. Lucia crashed into his thick and sturdy chest. A wave of hot air stung her face. Let me go! I've already said that I should be mourning, so you shouldn't make me sleep here. Lucia struggled. If you move again, I'll have to hold you tighter. Dalen whispered into her ear. Lucia's body froze as she sensed danger approaching. Not only did she not dare to move, every part of her body was tense. She didn't even dare to breathe loudly. Lucia's face was hot. I need to go, Dalen, Lucia said forcefully. Where to? Asked Dalen. To the office. Dalen paused for a moment. I will arrange for people to come so you can direct business from here. Lucia stubbornly turned her face to the side and said, No, I want to go in person. That company was left to me by my father. I want to do this on my own, so don't bother trying to help me. But you can let me use your car. Dalen didn't look sympathetic at all, but there was an evil smile in his eyes. Lucia gritted her teeth. She lowered her head, opened her mouth, and bit Dalen. Dalen let out a heavy groan from his throat. His large palm wrapped behind Lucia's small head, green light shining in his black eyes. It was painful and refreshing. However, she noticed that Dalen seemed to actually be enjoying it. She was so shocked that she immediately let go. She raised her head and looked at Dalen with a guarded expression. He didn't move at all. Why did you stop? Dalen's voice was repressed until it sounded hoarse. Lucia felt that Dalen's mental state was so perverted that it could make one's hair stand on end. Lucia ran to the bathroom. Standing in front of the bathroom mirror, she looked at herself. The complicated relationship between her and Dalen was something she could not figure out. Why did Bianca come to find him again? Didn't she know that Dalen is now married? Dalen couldn't do anything to his ex-girlfriend, right? Lucia really didn't want to have her head hurt while she was still in a vexed mood. Her father had just passed away. All she could do was try to be happy. However, she also thought that no matter what choice Dalen made, she would accept it. On the way to the company, Lucia stared out the window, lost in thought. Then she asked Dalen, Do you think my dad got sick from my anger? He wasn't that weak. If I can make him angry, I can definitely make him sick, Lucia reasoned. Dalen pulled Lucia, who was muttering, onto his lap. Lucia's face was embarrassed and red as she shifted in his lap to get comfortable. But no matter how she moved, Lucia felt too shy and wanted to get down. Dalen refused to let her go. What are you doing? It's not like there are no seats available, Lucia said. But this is your seat. Dalen's eyes flashed with a sharp and domineering light. Lucia remained silent. How quickly she could forget the pain of losing her family. If you really can't forget, I know what will make you so tired you won't have strength to think about it anymore, Dalen said in a teasing manner. Lucia's face was red with embarrassment. How can you say that? Dalen held her face and said with his lips that were just inches away from hers, I will say whatever I want to say. Finally, the car arrived at the office. Lucia got out of the car and said to Dalen, Walk behind me. Dalen nodded coldly. Is my outfit professional enough? I should have worn something more intimidating. Lucia was thinking that her clothes were no different from before, but now she was the big boss. She had to find some decent clothes. Your clothes are important, but what's even more important is your attitude. You have to go in and demand respect. Dalen looked at her and said. Lucia knew he was right. Leadership was something that came from within. Just like Dalen. A person would never dare to look straight into his eyes without humbling his expression. This was the reason why she finally agreed to bring Dalen to the company on her first day. He was so intimidating that no one dared to breathe out loud around him. Lucia walked into the company with a cautious expression on her face. Those who were walking stopped in their tracks. Her back straightened. They all stood there respectfully. Lucia felt a wave of energy start to build from the soles of her feet. A sense of accomplishment. When they entered her new office, Lucia said to Dalen proudly, "How was that? Very imposing?" "Yes." Dalen smiled at her. "Did you see those people's respectful gazes when they saw me?" "Not bad." Lucia turned around and said, "Okay, well, you can leave now." Dalen walked towards Lucia with narrowed eyes. Lucia took a hesitant step backwards until the back of her legs hit against the edge of the desk. What was Dalen doing? She raised her hands, putting them against his chest and stopping him at arm's length. "What are you doing? This is the office," Lucia said, her eyes wide. "That's it." Dalen's long arms reached toward Lucia's body on both sides of her. He was staring at her with those deep eyes. "It's over. We made an impression." Lucia leaned back with difficulty. "What else do you want?" "You won't treat me to water?" Dalen asked. "Ah, then I'll go pour it for you." As Lucia spoke, she tried to get up, but Dalen didn't move. Lucia pushed against his strong body. "Let go. If you don't, how can I help you?" Dalen's slender fingers touched Lucia's lips. They were soft like the feel of velvet. "Don't worry about it." Dalen's fingers continued tracing Lucia's soft lips. "But—" "Knock, knock, knock. Mr. Patrick?" It was Spencer's voice. Episode 121, Taking Charge. Lucia, who was stirred up, pushed Dalen away. With a sinister expression, Dalen wished that Spencer would disappear on the spot. However, Dalen knew that if it wasn't something important, Spencer wouldn't knock on the door. He let go of Lucia and stood a few steps back to compose himself and straighten his shirt. Lucia's head was lowered and her face was flushed. It was only with Dalen's great control that he managed to shift his gaze away from her. Lucia raised her head when she heard the door close after Dalen left. She pursed her lips. Dalen walked out with a dark expression. Spencer could sense that he had interrupted his boss. Dalen faced him with a cold expression. "Speak." "The hospital just called." Dalen suddenly stepped back with a sharp look in his eyes. Spencer continued. "There was indeed something suspicious about Mr. Elrod's condition. The result of the test showed that his internal organs were depleted due to a drug, but Mr. Elrod was completely healthy and had no reason to be taking these kind of drugs. He didn't even have a cold. Now the only problem is, Mr. Elrod has already been cremated and they're unable to conduct further tests." Spencer lowered his voice as he said this. He knew that he couldn't let Lucia hear about this. Otherwise, who knew how much she would lose control? "Investigate everything." Dalen's face was shockingly cold. Spencer nodded. "We're following that mother and daughter pair to investigate. We will definitely find the answer." Lucia rounded the desk and sat in her father's former chair in a daze. Every item here is what he had used. She didn't want to touch anything. She wanted to feel her father's presence around her as much and for as long as she could. Lucia's initial confidence in entering the company had now become feeble and dispirited. She laid her head down on the desk. 3 knocks on the door sounded like a signal. Lucia immediately sat up and composed herself before opening her mouth. Come in. A head popped in and Cole giggled. Why did you stutter? What stutter? It was an echo. Lucia relaxed her body. Then your response is really unique, Cole teased. Lucia looked at the head and asked, Why are you stuck at the door and not coming in? You're my big boss now. Do I dare come in? Did you not hear my reply just now? I said come in. Lucia rolled her eyes. Cole walked in and closed the door. Looking at Lucia's expression, she seemed to be doing well. Cole naturally knew how important Lucia's father was to her. Without him, Lucia really had no family. All she had now was Dalen. He didn't know if Lucia's heart was as calm as it seemed on the surface. Why are you looking at me? Lucia asked, after an uncomfortable silence. You know, you don't have to work so hard. With Dalen here, you don't have to worry about anything, Cole said. Don't have to work? I don't think you saw the boldness I showed when I entered the office this morning. Someone could have been intimidated from miles away, Lucia said in a reminiscent tone. This is a great feeling. That's right. Only you, Lucia, can fully display the cunningness of a fox, Cole said. What do you mean? How come I don't understand? Lucia was confused. Of course you don't understand. When you appeared, the whole company was in an uproar. All of the employees were discussing why Dalen would appear in our company. They even asked me if I knew anything about it, so I came straight here. Lucia felt her heart swell. It seemed like she was finally doing something right. I don't know why, but I feel that under my leadership, the company will definitely grow. I think so too. Cole agreed with her. Lucia thought about how she could use her relationship with Dalen to her advantage. How about this? I'll give you a promotion. Tell me what you want to do, and I'll promote you right now, Lucia said with excitement. Cole thought hard. Why do I feel like I don't have any credentials to be promoted? Lucia thought about it seriously. You can be my personal assistant. Huh? Then it's decided. Cole was still wrapping his head around the promotion when another person knocked at the door. Knock, knock, knock. One of the assistants walked in with a serious expression on his face. What's wrong? Lucia asked. Mrs. Elrod, or Barbara, I guess, is here, causing trouble at the front desk. Lucia had forgotten about her. This was only her first day at the company, so she didn't know what was going on with Barbara. Cole immediately told her, When you didn't come last week, the people from the Patrick family came. They cleared out everyone who supported Barbara as the new CEO. Why would I need his help? I can handle it myself, Lucia said, her annoyance flaring again. Cole looked at her doubtfully. Barbara still has the guts to come? This person's skin is even thicker than mine, Lucia pondered. Let's go take a look. Lucia stood up. From afar, they could see Barbara throwing a tantrum. Everyone was staring at her. There were also those who used to be loyal to her. I want to see Lucia. Where is she? The company is mine, so the inheritance should be mine, Barbara screamed. Then she picked up a vase from the front desk and threw it on the ground. It shattered into pieces, fragments scattered all over the place. Those who were standing closest to her backed away in fear. Why did you want to see me? Lucia walked up. She looked coldly at Barbara, who looked like a wild animal. Dalen watched this from around the corner, and his gaze was deep and cold. Barbara looked at Lucia with a sinister gaze. This is all your fault, Barbara yelled. What did I do? Lucia said, trying to remain calm. You changed the will, you unloyal daughter. You changed the will behind your father's back. He won't rest in peace. Try mentioning my dad again. Lucia walked over to Barbara. Barbara was shocked by Lucia's confidence. Her lips quivered, but she remained silent. Lucia walked up to her and asked, Why aren't you talking? Are you deaf or are you mute? Don't be so proud. I am your senior. How can you treat me like this? Barbara was so angry that her whole body was trembling. Don't think that I can't make you regret this. Lucia smiled. I know you can. However, it might not be suitable for you to make a move now because Dalen is here. Do you want me to call him over? Hearing Dalen's name, Barbara's anger turned into cowardice. Cole, who was standing behind Lucia, looked down on Barbara. He thought about how Lucia used Dalen's name just now. Would she be able to take care of the company all by herself without using Dalen's name to give her power? Dalen is here? Barbara stammered. You dare to call Dalen by his name? Aren't you afraid that he will hear you? Lucia sneered. Episode 122, First Step into the Corporate World. Barbara's expression changed as she looked around. Although she didn't see Dalen, she felt a chill on her spine. It was Dalen's unpredictable character that scared Barbara the most. She knew for a fact that she couldn't take Lucia down until Dalen was by her side, and she wouldn't be able to take Dalen down without a plan. Barbara turned to leave. Stop her, Lucia instructed the security guards. The security guards immediately stopped Barbara. Barbara held back her nervousness. What are you doing? She asked. Lucia pointed to the broken glass on the floor. This vase is company property. Pay for it or I will file a vandalism charge against you. If Lucia didn't restrain Barbara, she would never forget it for the rest of her life. Lucia despised Barbara for what she had done to her family. Barbara was stopped and could not leave until she paid for the vase. She was fuming, but she still had to fork out the money. She pulled a few bills out of her wallet and threw them out on the floor. After Barbara was released, Lucia picked up the money and gave it to the front desk, saying, Go buy another vase and buy yourself something nice with the extra money. The receptionist was very happy. Thank you, Miss Elrod. Hearing the receptionist accept her made her heart burst with pride. Dalen, who was hiding in the dark, looked at Lucia's triumphant expression. The corner of his mouth lifted into a sexy smile, while his eyes were deep and loving. Dalen knew his work here was done, so he did not stay any longer at the office and left. He had more important things to do, and Lucia was handling everything so well. When Lucia returned to her office, she remembered that she didn't see Dalen. He must have left, right? But would he really just leave and not say anything? In any case, she was still a person with status. Assistant Simpson. Cole was stunned for a few seconds. He looked at Lucia and asked, Are you calling me? What else should I call you? She asked. Are you serious? He couldn't believe his good luck. Do I look serious? Lucia responded, with a straight face. Cole smiled. What orders do you have for me, boss? I need you to set up a meeting with the heads of all the departments in the conference room. Yes, ma'am. Lucia sat at her desk and started looking through her calendar. She hadn't been so happy in weeks. Cole entered the office again. Time for the conference. Why aren't you going to the meeting room? They're all waiting. What's the hurry? The most important people are the last to appear, Lucia said with a grin. She put down her cell phone and then followed Cole towards the conference room. The main thing was to get everyone on her side. As Lucia had been working at the company for a while, she already knew most of the heads. However, when she saw a certain man sitting at the table, her eyes flickered. This guy was really handsome, like a celebrity. He's already in management at such a young age, Lucia thought. Lucia whispered to Cole beside her. Who is that man? Cole looked over. He's from the PR department. His name is Brandon Fulton. No wonder he looks so cool. I didn't notice him in the past. What do you want with him? Cole asked. Guess. Lucia winked at him. Lucia sat at the head of the table in a comfortable chair. Cole, who was at the side, was sweating profusely. Although Lucia did not have the conventional good looks, the people below did not dare to underestimate her. Presumably, everyone knew that the new boss had a relationship with Dalen Patrick. Therefore, Cole wasn't worried. But then again, this company wasn't just for Lucia to mess around with. It couldn't go out of business if she did a bad job. In a moment, another one of the assistants had piled all the important documents in front of Lucia. Lucia's eyes twitched as she stared at the pile. Even her schoolwork wasn't so thick. The assistant acted as if he could not see her shock and continued. "Boss, lunch will be served at 11 p.m. with Mr. Smith." "Sure, arrange it," Lucia said. "It's been arranged." Lucia was impressed by the efficiency. After her other assistant left, she said to Cole, "You'll go with me." "All right," Cole agreed. Lucia arrived late to the restaurant. A middle-aged man with a beer belly and a bald head was seated at the reserved table. Lucia broke out in cold sweat. Why couldn't she have met with the PR department head for a meal? After taking his seat, the middle-aged man looked left and right before leaning in to talk to Lucia. "You must be an assistant, right?" he asked her. Cole glared at him and answered, I'm sorry, sir, you must have been mistaken, but this is Miss Elrod, the new heir of this company." "Huh, so you are the boss now? You're pretty young. Nice to meet you." As he spoke, he stood up and was about to shake Lucia's hand, but a hesitant Lucia didn't comply and instead hid her hands under the table. The middle-aged man had an awkward expression as his hand hovered in the air. "Feel free to order whatever you want to eat." The man laughed awkwardly as he sat back down. "Mr. Smith, you're too polite." Lucia forced a smile. "Now, you don't have a boyfriend yet, right?" Mr. Smith asked. "Nope." Lucia figured she wasn't lying since she just got married. After hearing her answer, Mr. Smith was overjoyed. Good, good. Young people these days shouldn't get married until after their careers." "I think so too." Lucia felt that she was being very patient with the ignorant man. After they ordered their dishes, there was an awkward silence. Lucia directly asked, "Mr. Smith, I've heard you have doubts about our contract?" Mr. Smith's face turned all business, and he cleared his throat. "It's all a small problem. Lucia raised her eyebrows. "Well, if it's just a small problem, why don't we sign the contract?" "What's the hurry? We'll talk about it after lunch," Mr. Smith said. "Then I'll go to the washroom. Cole, please keep Mr. Smith company while I'm gone." After saying that, Lucia went to the bathroom. Lucia washed her face with water. She needed to calm herself down, otherwise she would hit someone. Mr. Smith was too disgusting. Didn't she hear someone say he was always an old rogue? "Miss Elrod." Lucia was so frightened that she immediately raised her head. She saw Mr. Smith in the mirror reflection and glared at him. The water on her face dripped down onto her shirt before she could wipe it off. "What are you doing here?" Lucia felt the last shreds of her patience melting away. "Wow, you truly are a natural beauty, a pure natural beauty. Even with no makeup, I saw your lips were bright red. I thought you weren't wearing lipstick, but you aren't. That's great." Mr. Smith had an evil smile on his face. Lucia's body was stiff and motionless. Was he seriously trying to flirt with her in the women's bathroom? Mr. Smith's gaze was fixated on Lucia's chest. "Do you want me to sign the contract?" "Yeah," Lucia said, watching him warily as he stepped closer. "Well, we can get the deed done right away. If you just compromise just a little. I mean, I'm sure with those looks, you'd never have any issues running your business. If only I was born as a beautiful woman like you." The old fart had a disgustingly mischievous look on his face as he continued to move closer to Lucia. Anger clouded over Lucia's face. "Maybe I'll give you even more if— Ah!" Before Mr. Smith could finish his sentence, a black shadow smashed towards his head. There was no time for resistance. He fell to the ground and fainted. Lucia had managed to get hold of a decorative stone kept on the washroom sink. She just wanted to scare him away with it, but somehow her anger took better of her, and she ended up hitting him on the head with it. Those who came into the washroom were so frightened of the scene that they immediately left. Who gave you the guts to tease me? Do you want to die? Lucia kicked Mr. Smith's leg hard. Then she thought of something. Oh no, the contract hasn't been signed yet. How am I going to get him to sign it now? How can I wake him up? Lucia looked behind her, cupped some water in her hands, and splashed it onto Mr. Smith's face. Episode 123, A New Friend. Mr. Smith slowly blinked his eyes open. Who threw water at me? Mr. Smith was shocked when he saw Lucia standing in front of the door. He angrily stood up. What did you do to me? Did you hit me in the head? And now you're throwing water at me. Don't even think that I'll sign that contract now. How about I give you some incentive? Lucia asked, while blinking her eyes. Mr. Smith swallowed hard. He forgot about his pain and asked with a lecherous expression, What kind of incentives? Wait a moment. Lucia took out her cell phone and dialed. She turned it on speakerphone and soon heard Dalen's low voice say, You miss me? Annoyance appeared on Lucia's face. Could Dalen behave for a moment? However, she did not argue with Dalen when she saw Mr. Smith, who was listening to her but not understanding. Dalen, what are you busy with? When Lucia called him by his first name, Mr. Smith's face stiffened. It was as if he was frightened. Lucia was extremely pleased with herself. In with my family, Dalen answered. Oh, I have a social meetup. We're about to sign a contract. Okay. Do you want any help? Dalen asked, confused. No, I just wanted to keep you in the loop. I'll talk to you later. After hanging up the phone, Lucia asked Mr. Smith, Why do you look so surprised? Although Mr. Smith didn't have the qualifications to ever meet Dalen, his name was already intimidating. No. You and Mr. Patrick have some kind of relationship? Mr. Smith stammered. Lucia smiled triumphantly. He's always asking me out to eat and drink, and he often invites me to his company, Lucia said in a nonchalant manner. Smith thought, what kind of extraordinary person would be fortunate enough to be invited by Mr. Patrick for a meal? He always felt that he should avoid offending others, especially those more powerful than him. Furthermore, Dalen even asked Miss Elrod if she missed him. Were they dating? Do you have any other questions? Lucia asked. No. Why don't we go back to our table and sign the contract? Mr. Smith stammered. Yes, Mr. Smith, I love how straightforward you are. When the contract was signed, even Cole found it hard to believe. On their way back, he asked Lucia, Why did he sign it so quickly? Did anything happen after you went to the bathroom? Lucia grinned. Let's just say he saw some of our company's strengths. Then he felt that what I said was very reasonable, so he agreed to sign. In the bathroom? Cole asked. That's right, Lucia answered simply. Then why was there a big bump on Mr. Smith's head? Did you use torture? Cole knew that his friend was sometimes prone to violence. Lucia shrugged. Maybe he crashed into the wall. Lucia would never admit that she used Dalen again, but this feeling was truly refreshing. When she got back to the company, she headed straight to the elevators. When the elevator door opened, Lucia saw who was already inside. The Public Relations Department's Brandon Fulton. Miss Elrod! Brandon nodded as he greeted her. Lucia nodded and greeted him back. When they reached the next floor, Brandon went out first. Cole reminded Lucia, who was about to follow, Don't forget that you're a married woman. You're thinking too much. Lucia glanced at Cole seriously. Besides, Dalen isn't exactly loyal either. He still has Bianca. Do you smell anything? Cole said, sniffing deeply. What? What smell? I don't smell it. It's sour, Cole said. The sour smell is everywhere. Lucia finally understood that Cole was teasing her. I'm not jealous, I just told the truth. Bianca is really good-looking. The corner of Cole's mouth twitched. When Lucia walked out of the company, she saw a car parked in front of the entrance. Of course, it was Dalen's car, and the car behind him belonged to the bodyguard. The Patrick's influence shook the heavens. Anyone who came out of the company could see it at a glance. Lucia quickly got into the car. As soon as she entered, her hand tripped and she slipped right into Dalen's arms. Then the door slammed. "Why are you so eager to throw yourself into my arms?" Dalen's deep and melodious voice was filled with interest. Lucia's face turned red. "I don't know what you're talking about." As she spoke, she struggled to straighten up with embarrassment. However, Dalen didn't let her go. "Dalen, please let me sit." Lucia tried to extricate herself from his embrace. "Why, do you not feel at home in my arms?" Dalen asked, feigning arrogance to intimidate Lucia. He was right. His embrace did feel like home to Lucia, but she would never admit that in front of Dalen. This feeling was ambiguous. Lucia couldn't bear it. "So how was your first day as the new boss? Are you tired?" Dalen asked as he held her by her waist and looked at her delicate face. Lucia blinked her eyes and said, "I'm not tired. It's mainly because I'm so adept at doing things." Dalen's eyes lit up with a smile. However, Lucia's so-called hard work was hardly different from having a long sleep in another place. She played mobile games in her office, took a nap, and ate snacks. And obviously, there was the head of the public relations department to feast her eyes on. Her day was like being in heaven. But even better, because heaven doesn't pay you. But that was exactly what Lucia was capable of, and it was all because she had Dalen's power behind her. During the day, Lucia had paced around the office. Her frown deepened as Cole came into the office asking, "What's wrong? What's the problem?" "You know what's wrong? I'll tell you what's wrong. This computer is not suitable for playing games." Lucia pointed to the computer on her desk. Cole sat at her desk and looked over. Lucia continued, "Cole, you have to find a way to buy me a desktop computer, the kind that runs computer games. I think it must have something to do with the hardware." Cole didn't expect anything else from her. "Okay, I'll go find you one." While Cole went out to arrange for a computer, Lucia was fiddling with her phone when she noticed a new friend notification on one of her social media chatting apps. Lucia looked at the strange profile with confusion brimming in her eyes. What was going on? When did she add this person as a friend? Why didn't she remember? The username was listed as Master. The name seemed sloppy and arrogant. Lucia typed out a message. Episode 124, Fresh Conversations Brewing. Talking on text. Lucia, hi. Just wanted to confirm if I added you to my friends list? Master. Yes. Lucia. When? Master. Forgot. Lucia. Strangely, I don't remember adding you here. Do we know each other from somewhere? Master. IDK. I think it was random. Lucia bit her finger and paused. Lucia. Do you know me? Master. I don't know. Lucia looked at the username and actually didn't have the impulse to delete the person. That's not right. Previously, when someone requested to add her, if she didn't know them, she would immediately delete them. Absolutely. The fact that Lucia had no idea how she ended up adding him regardless made her a little suspicious. Lucia, do you mind telling me a little more about yourself? Master, look at my profile. Lucia had no choice but to waste her energy reading his profile. With that look, she scrolled through the stranger's profile to learn a bit more about him. Yes, he was a man. The rest was set to private. Lucia, are you secretly in love with me? Master, are you a narcissist? Lucia, ... Master, is this working? Lucia, I know who you are. Master, who? Lucia, I like this kind of mysteriousness. Master, ... Lucia held her face in her hands and waited excitedly for his response. The chat remained silent for a while before it came through. Master, who? Why did Lucia have the feeling that he was gritting his teeth? Lucia, I won't say. When Cole returned, he saw Lucia spinning around excitedly. What are you doing? Is something wrong? This is quite exciting. Lucia pulled Cole over and said slyly, The PR department's Brandon Fulton added my chat software. The two of us were having a heated conversation just now. Just added? It must have been added yesterday. It can't be. Cole was surprised. Why not? You see, he always looked at me and smiled when we were in a meeting, Lucia said, thinking about Brandon's dreamy eyes. Cole was still skeptical. He said he's Brandon? Not exactly. Lucia twirled a piece of her hair around her finger, staring at the cell phone screen. How did you know it's him if he didn't say so? Cole asked. Is there even a need to guess? I can see it from Brandon's eyes. Lucia was quite confident in her charm. Cole was stunned, and he was worried Dalen would be angry if he found out about any of this. Oh, right. Were you able to arrange for my new computer? Lucia asked. Yes, it's done and will be brought over later in the afternoon. After returning to the mansion, Lucia felt that Dalen was in a worse mood than usual. Had she somehow offended him? She didn't even have the chance to offend him since she stayed at the office all day. Therefore, Lucia didn't take the initiative to talk to him and waited for his mood to calm down. After going back to her room, Lucia sat on the sofa and watched TV. Then Dalen sat across from her and looked at her coldly without saying a word. Lucia couldn't watch anymore. Are you all right? She asked. The office is keeping you busy? Dalen asked without answering her question. I'm not so busy. Lucia shook her head. I suppose so. Lucia was stupefied. Why was Dalen so unpredictable? Are you in a bad mood? Lucia asked kindly. Dalen stood up and left without saying anything. Lucia was even more confused, so she decided to ignore him. She didn't want to be hurt by Dalen's temper. Just as she was about to watch TV again, the phone on her tea table lit up. Lucia looked and saw that it was her new chat friend. Master, what are you doing? Like a thief, Lucia looked towards the bedroom and turned back after seeing that there was no movement. Lucia, watching TV. What about you? Lucia was waiting for the master to reply when she heard footsteps behind her. Lucia's heartbeat quickened as she quickly stuffed her phone under a pillow. She pretended to be focused on watching TV. Dalen stood there, looking at Lucia, who sat upright, trying to appear innocent. Did she think he didn't see her little actions just now? She thought she was talking in secret and didn't want him to see. He wanted to know who Lucia thought she was talking to. Dalen went into the bedroom again. Lucia held her chest. She had almost been scared to death. Dalen had just stood there in a daze. What am I so afraid of? Lucia thought. I didn't do anything shameful? Forget it. Dalen's possessiveness is so scary, I better not let him know. It was better to avoid trouble. Meanwhile, Spencer was still busy digging up information on Sheldon Elrod's backstabber. 3 days later, Spencer gave Dalen all the information he had found. It was a forbidden drug administered by Barbara and her daughter. This is it. Spencer handed over a bottle that was filled with transparent liquid. Dalen clenched his fists. Even just a drop of this can cause organ damage. If you want the effect to be faster, add more. I found a servant who worked for the Elrod family for 5 years. She told me the truth. It turned out that the reason she quit was because she saw Barbara and her daughter poisoning Mr. Elrod, and they forced her to leave. I found out that the medicine company is booming right now. What does Mr. Patrick mean to do? Do you still need my instructions? Dalen's eyes were cold and harsh. I understand, Spencer responded. Dalen stared at the bottle in his hand with disgust. His voice sounded like it came from hell. We have to punish everyone involved. What about Barbara and her daughter? Spencer asked. Isn't it too easy for them to die? Dalen's eyes were extremely terrifying. When Spencer was about to leave, he thought of something. He looked at Dalen's expression and hesitated. trying to decide whether he should say it now or save it for when Dalen was in a better mood. If he told him now, Dalen's mood would be even worse. When Dalen raised his sharp gaze, though, Spencer had no choice but to tell him. Mr. Patrick, there are some rumors about Mrs. Patrick and the public relations manager in the office. Spencer had heard the rumor but had no idea if it was true. However, even if it was just hearsay, it was enough for Dalen's face to go even darker. Public relations. In a cafe across town, Lucia rubbed her nose after a big sneeze. Did she catch a cold? Why did she sneeze all of a sudden? Are you all right? Brandon asked with concern. Lucia and Brandon were having coffee together. She had arranged for an impromptu one-on-one with the public relations manager, but because of her inclination towards him, she had specifically asked Cole to arrange for the meeting away from the office. I'm fine. How about we catch up for lunch again tomorrow? I want you to take me through the company's ongoing PR plans. Lucia invited him on her own accord. Sure, Brandon smiled. Lucia was enthralled by his gentle smile. She was very well aware about the fact that she was playing with fire here, but her infatuation towards this handsome man kept pushing her further. I think you're a great person, she said. Episode 125, Overbearing and Unreasonable. Well, you're like a friend of mine, Lucia laughed dryly. I guess that your friends must be very important to you, Brandon said. Yeah, I love my friends. Lucia thought of Axel and felt regret in her heart. Brandon thought of something and asked, I don't mean to cross my boundaries, but, ma'am, will Mr. Patrick have an issue if we went out for a private lunch? Lucia was stunned. Why would he have an issue with it? It's a working lunch after all. Brandon smiled but didn't say anything. Lucia's heart felt heavy. If she knew that rumors would spread, she wouldn't have brought Dalen around the company. The key point was that when Barbara came to cause trouble the other day, she had even used Dalen's name. She basically raised a megaphone to tell everyone that she had a deep relationship with Dalen. Lucia heaved a long sigh in her heart. However, Lucia still didn't want Brandon to misunderstand and explained, It's not what you think, actually. As you might already be aware, Mr. Patrick is a great businessman, and I'm quite new to this, actually. So it was his idea only to help me ease into the workings of the company. He can be a little overbearing and unreasonable sometimes. He likes to enjoy the status of supremacy over me because of all of my shortcomings. It is too terrifying to be with him sometimes. I like you much more than him. You're especially gentle, graceful, and gentle. Drink. When Lucia finished laughing, she felt her body turn cold. Did it just get cold? She noticed that Brandon's face had turned pale, and he stood up abruptly. Mr. Patrick! Dalen? Lucia was shocked. Only then did she feel that someone was right behind her. The cold wind whizzed down her spine. It can't be Dalen, right? Why is he here? Lucia turned her neck. When she saw Dalen's face, which was almost as black as the bottom of a pot, she was so shocked that she directly fell off her chair. Dalen! Dalen! Lucia was trying to get herself up from the chair, but the fear of getting caught with another man made her feel weak in the knees. She didn't manage to call out his full name. Brandon couldn't bear it and wanted to get out of there. I'm going to work, he said. Dalen looked at him with a sharp and gloomy gaze. You stay there. Brandon froze, afraid to leave. The break time is over. Lucia stuck her head out and swallowed her words when Dalen glared at her. Dalen sat down beside Lucia. His sharp eyes swept over Brandon. You want to continue standing? Brandon sat down, but it was compulsory. The bodyguards were standing not too far away, so it would be impossible for him to get away. Even without bodyguards, Dalen could have held him there with the power of his gaze. The air was so silent that it was suffocating. Dalen continued. Why aren't we chatting? Didn't we have a good chat just now? No, we were talking about work, Lucia quibbled. You think I couldn't hear you? Dalen's face turned dark. Lucia lowered her head and did not speak. Why did it feel like she'd been caught red-handed? She was just chatting with Brandon. Nothing else. Dalen looked at Brandon with a gaze as sharp as a blade. Brandon felt unwell. His face was pale and unable to recover. From now on, don't let me see you in this company again, Dalen said mercilessly. Brandon's face turned even paler. If you disappear, I'll let you live in this city. Dalen was at his most ruthless, but he was willing to be merciful. Brandon didn't dare to stay any longer. He stood up, turned around, and left. Lucia didn't expect Dalen to fire the manager out of her PR department with just a few words, but she did not dare to be too angry. He is a member of my company. I should be the one to fire him. Why are you acting like this? I'm being overbearing and unreasonable, Dalen said with disgust in his voice. Lucia was gloomy. Dalen pinched her lower jaw. You're still hesitating? Dalen's face turned dark. Lucia's jaw ached, and tears were about to flow out. Dalen immediately let go of her face when he saw this. What are you crying for? Dalen's voice was rough and heavy. I didn't do anything. You wronged me. Lucia cried even more fiercely. Dalen said irritably, Weren't you the one who said that just now? What did you want me to do? Pretend that I didn't see or hear what you just said to that man? I'm already merciful enough. Lucia held her breath and did not speak. Come on, we're going home. Lucia panicked. Why? You'll see. He had an evil look in his eyes. Lucia was worried he was about to break the 3-month contract. No, Dalen, please listen to me, she cried. Dalen pulled her to the car. When they got home, Dalen put his arms around her and carried her into the room. She was too scared to cry now. She felt like she was going to be used by Dalen. She didn't want it. Let me go, Dalen, please. Lucia continued to cry. She was extremely scared of Dalen at this point. She knew from her past few days with him that he would never hurt her on purpose, but her little stint with Brandon today might have just washed away all the trust they had instilled between them. She knew Dalen's overprotectiveness could be a little alarming at times, and this time she was the one who had crossed a line. Dalen placed Lucia on the edge of the bed. As he took a step forward to move towards her, Lucia leapt away like a frightened kitten into the closet. Dalen glanced at her coldly and then turned around to leave. Lucia relaxed. Did he really just leave? Had he just brought her home to frighten her? Lucia looked at the door and walked forward after a moment's hesitation. Before she got to the door, Dalen walked in again with his tall demeanor and a straight face. In his hand was a towel. Lucia's face darkened before she could understand what was going on. Dalen slowly walked towards Lucia and wiped her crying face. Lucia was stunned. She had been crying for a while, and she could feel the tightness of her dried tears on her cheeks. After wiping it off, her face was clean and glowing. Lucia blushed. He had been gentle, but the towel had still rubbed her face red. She was so delicate. Episode 126, Master. Thank you. Lucia felt a sense of joy. She wasn't scared at all anymore. She raised her face and giggled. Dalen lowered his gaze and casually threw the towel in his hand to the side. Let's talk about us now. Lucia tensed up. What about us? The smile on her face disappeared. We need to talk about your unreasonable behavior. Tell me, what do you have to say for yourself? Dalen's voice was dangerous. Lucia carefully took a step back. Lucia couldn't think of what to say. If you don't say anything, I'll break our contract right here. Dalen's elegant, beast-like steps slowly approached. Lucia retreated as he came closer. You are a human. How can you break your promise? I don't like it. Lucia was still backing away. Suddenly, the wall behind her blocked her retreat. Lucia became more and more flustered when she saw Dalen's expression. Dalen stopped when he got close to her. He looked down at Lucia with an indifferent and dangerous gaze. Lucia bowed her head. There was a clear look of sadness on her face. Dalen was slightly shocked. He was upset that he did not know about the other men, and that Lucia was saying bad things about him in front of other men. I'll see you back in the evening. After Dalen said that, he turned around and left. Lucia raised her head only after the door closed behind her. Lucia heaved a sigh of relief and decided to quickly get back to her office. She was very well aware that the coffee shop incident would have reached her employees by now, and if nothing else, she knew she had to take care of the situation. While on her way, Lucia kept playing the entire incident over and over again in her head. To say she felt embarrassed would be the understatement of the year. She kept thinking about how Dalen caught her in the act. Who told Dalen where she was? While Lucia was frowning in confusion, there was a knock on her car window, scaring her back into reality. It was Cole knocking at her window. He glanced at Lucia and asked, "Are you still alive?" "What is it? Why are you worried about me?" "Not only am I alive, I'm also alive and well," Lucia said. Cole had already learned about the coffee shop incident from Brandon. "Wait, were you the one who told Dalen where I was?" Lucia asked. "No." Cole was stupefied by the question. Then how did Dalen know that Brandon and I were having coffee together? Lucia had only told Cole about this. Who else could have known? "How would I know? Maybe Dalen just knows everything. He is such a strong person, it is not strange for him to know that you're drinking coffee, right?" Cole said. Lucia couldn't wrap her head around it. The more she thought about it, the more agitated she became. "What's wrong? Did you have a quarrel? You can go back and coax him." Cole gave her advice, but it wasn't helpful. It was a rotten idea for Lucia. "I'm coaxing him? You don't even know what he did." Lucia was infuriated just thinking about it. However, Cole was very curious. With an excited expression, he asked, "What did he do?" "He chased Brandon away and fired him. Now the public relations department lost its manager. No one can fill Brandon's position. It's so annoying." Cole was at a loss for words. He thought to himself, is she really annoyed because she can't find a good-natured public relations manager, or because Brandon is gone? She is a married woman. Cole rolled his eyes. Lucia was thinking, could it be that Brandon hadn't left yet? She turned around and called the PR department, who told her that Brandon had already left. When she thought about Dalen's merciless words, she felt that leaving quickly was probably his best option. Lucia sat dejectedly on her seat and said to Cole, "It's all right now. You can go back to work." After Cole left for work, she turned on her computer and took out her cell phone. She opened her chat app. She began typing. "Lucia, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I caused you to lose your job. I feel very guilty right now." After sending it, she waited for a reply. However, there was no reply. Lucia finished her game and still nothing. Was he ignoring her? No matter who it was, ignoring people is rude. She tried messaging again. "Lucia, did you get what I just said?" "Master, I don't understand." Lucia was puzzled. How could he not understand? What she said was not that complicated. "Lucia, Brandon, I know you're just saying that because you're angry. Don't be angry. I sincerely apologize to you." "Master, I'm not Brandon." Lucia was dumbfounded. It can't be. Wasn't it Brandon? "Lucia, why did you say that you were Brandon then?" "Master, I never said that." Lucia had the urge to pull her hair out. It was not Brandon. She really didn't know what to say. Ah! Lucia was so angry that she wanted to delete this stranger. Just as she was about to block this stranger, she stopped. She should not delete him. She wanted to know who this person was, if not Brandon. Lucia. All right, so be it. I'm sorry, I got you wrong. Who are you then? And do you stay in the same city as me? Master. Yes. Lucia. Then what's your name? Can you tell me? You tell me your real name and I'll tell you mine, okay? Master. Call me Master and I'll tell you. Lucia was stupefied at the stranger's request. Using a username was different, but forcing people to greet you as Master was outrightly cocky. It doesn't matter. She endured. She just had to be patient and play along. Lucia. Master. Master. Good girl. Lucia. Now can you tell me your name? Episode 127, Super Interested. Master. There is no need for you to know my name, and you don't need to tell me your name either. Cole, who was working outside Lucia's office and could see through a glass window, was shocked. He saw Lucia grabbing her own hair and howling madly in her office. Lucia didn't expect herself to be flirted with by an unknown netizen. She couldn't help but admire this person's ability to torment her. The more they messaged, the more she wanted to find this person. Lucia wasn't used to a lot of male attention growing up. Now, with Dalen's insecurities, Brandon's willingness, and a stranger's avid interest in her, Lucia didn't really understand how to handle them together. She felt like a little child in an ice cream parlor. However, as she was thinking about how to uncover the master, Lucia got a text from Dalen. Don't forget all your lies come with its fitting consequences. Don't think I haven't forgotten how you misspoke about me earlier. If you want me to respect our contract and stay away from you for the time left, then you need to write an article about how you love your husband so dearly. I'm sure thinking about a few good things about me will stop you from misrepresenting me in front of your other suitors. I want to read it in the evening when I see you at home. Dalen. Lucia never really understood why Dalen kept giving her these childish assignments as punishment. Always. She felt embarrassed at being treated like a child by him over and over again. After all, she was now the only heir responsible for running her father's company. How could Dalen punish her like a high schooler? Turning around to see Cole working, she thought about delegating the task to him instead. But she couldn't do that. Lucia didn't want to lose face. Therefore, she had to resign herself to her fate and start writing. Cole raised his head and saw Lucia writing furiously. He walked into the office without Lucia even noticing. He stretched out his head curiously, asking, What are you writing? Do you need help? Lucia jumped in fright and quickly covered her writing with her hands. I don't need your help. She looked at Cole warily. All right, have it your way. Cole nodded blankly. He turned around and returned to his desk. Although he didn't see what Lucia was writing, it definitely didn't have anything to do with his work. Lucia was too distracted. When Lucia finished writing, she put her head down on the table. Dalen came to pick her up after work. Lucia thought he was still angry. But what was there to be angry about? He had already punished her for making her write so much. The car was moving steadily. Lucia sat on the leather chair cross-legged, looking at Dalen, who was sitting across from her. His expression was cold, and his eyes sharp. You finished the article. No mistakes, neat and tidy. Dalen spoke like a strict teacher. Lucia pouted and said inwardly, It's always your way or the highway. Not that I had much of a choice again. The key is that you thought about me. Forcefully, though, but you did. Dalen's gaze turned stern. Lucia's heart was thumping hard. She shrank back and said unhappily, breaking the tension between them, Dalen, I know I hurt you by saying what I said to Brandon. I'm sorry for that, but you always get insecure whenever I'm around any other man. I mean, there are so many men in my company. It's not likely that they won't come into contact with me, right? I am the business owner. There will be times when I won't have any option but to talk to them. How many more men are you going to kick out then? I'm assuming all, right? Is that what you intend to do? Dalen was silent for a moment before he said, Actually, not a bad idea though. Let's replace them all with women. Lucia was horrified. Are you joking? Do you think I'm joking? Dalen's gaze turned stern once again. Why all girls? Then your company should be replaced too, and only have men. Dalen paused, thinking about what she said. Lucia continued. So you have nothing to say, right? Can't I ask you for all the things you ask of me? You are just too overbearing and unreasonable. Lucia felt that she definitely had the upper hand at this moment. If he wanted to change her company, he'd have to change his as well. Sure, Dalen said after a moment. Lucia did not understand what he meant and asked, What? All the women at my company will be replaced by men, Dalen said. Lucia thought she was giving up on people from her company, but she didn't expect Dalen to do this. Is he crazy? In order to change all the people in her company into women, Dalen did not hesitate to change all the people in his company into men. This was not a normal kind of madness. Lucia's hair stood on end just thinking about it. One company was full of men, and one was full of women. Lucia immediately stopped him. Don't be like this. It's better if the company is normal. If the worst comes to worst, when I see a man in the future, I will take a detour. If it's really about work, then I will talk about work and not talk about anything else. Really? Dalen asked, feeling skeptical. Really, Lucia promised. The next few days, Lucia ensured that she kept her distance from the men in the company. A few days later, Cole walked into Lucia's office with a current project at hand for which the PR team needed approvals. Since Brandon's termination, all the major approvals had to be run through Lucia first. The PR team had managed to bag themselves a huge client for the company who wanted a good-looking male for their branding, and that approval had to go through Lucia. The PR department had given her several profiles of male models, but none of them caught Lucia's eyes. She kept thinking about Brandon. If only he was still a part of her company, they wouldn't even have had to look. Lucia rejected all the profiles, but the deadline was soon approaching. One afternoon, Lucia was in the bathroom stall when she heard a conversation between two women washing their hands. The male model in that bar yesterday was really handsome, especially when he twerked that little ass on him. We'll go again next time. After the two of them left the bathroom, Lucia squatted on the toilet, deep in her thoughts. A sudden inspiration struck her. That's right. If she wanted to find handsome workers, wouldn't it be better to go to a place like a bar? Why hadn't she thought of that? Just when Lucia got an idea. Later that afternoon, Lucia decided to treat the company's management to a meal. She called Dalen to inform him that she'd not be having dinner at home later that night. But why do you even need to throw a dinner party for them? Dalen's patience was on the verge of exploding. I haven't invited anyone to dinner since I took office. It wouldn't make sense if I didn't invite them, would it? Lucia reasoned. Lucia, if I find out this is some kind of a scheme, you'll regret it. After Dalen said that, he hung up. He was so upset. Lucia knew deep down what she was getting herself voluntarily involved into, but she just didn't want to agree just yet. Besides, she convinced herself it was mere work. She needed to find a male model for her company, and that was all she was doing. That can't be considered scheming, right? Once she found a replacement, she promised to stay away from the PR department. Lucia felt that she was looking out for the future of the company. Later that evening, her coworkers were eating while Lucia excused herself to the washroom where she took out her credit card. It was like she was having second thoughts about something. With her father giving everything to her, Lucia now had some money in her account and a credit card with her own name on it. She obviously didn't have as much money as Dalen, but it was still something. But was she planning on spending it all tonight? No, she couldn't think of it, so she put it back. Can't she think for herself? Therefore, Lucia was at a loss for more than 10 minutes, and Cole came to look for her. Watching Lucia come out of the bathroom, he asked, "What are you doing? Have you eaten something bad?" "Nope," Lucia answered. "I thought you fell into the toilet," Cole teased. After dinner, Lucia arranged for everyone to go to a bar for drinks. It was quite a high-end bar. The higher the grade, the better-looking men inside. Episode 128, Stay Away. Seeing that everyone was having fun, Lucia quietly excused herself from the crowd and signaled at Cole to follow her. The two went to look for a male model. She couldn't openly look around yet, so she just looked out of the corner of her eye. "Is this method good?" Cole asked. "Oh, I'm strictly on a hunt to find a good-looking model for the campaign. Besides, I am married to a monster, so it doesn't matter. But you're still single, and I don't mind shooting 2 birds with 1 arrow tonight." Lucia winked at Cole. "You're crazy." "That guy looks good." Lucia was pointing at a man with a nice figure and a creamy face. "How do you know he's a male model?" Cole asked, puzzled. "Haven't you noticed? All the male models have the same brooch pinned to their collars," Lucia observed. Cole took a look. There were indeed quite a few male models who were wearing brooches. "Sometimes I just don't understand your type when it comes to men," he expressed. Just then, Lucia pointed to another man. Cole felt that this model was nothing compared to Dalen. He wondered what Lucia's aesthetic was. "I think he's the best," Lucia said with conviction. When the male model stood up, Lucia pulled Cole along and followed. The deeper they went, the more remote it became. He then walked through a corridor and entered a side hall. Lucia and Cole were stunned. Behind a large glass window, 2 women were waiting on a man. Lucia looked at the 2 women in shock. If it was anyone else, she would just turn around and leave. However, the women inside were Barbara and Macy. Why are they here? Cole also saw them. He leaned close to Lucia and whispered, "I heard that Macy can't pay for school any longer. I wonder if she came here to try and cover the tuition fees." Lucia turned around and walked out. This really makes me look at them in a new light. I can't believe they're actually doing such a thing. Are they that crazy for money? Lucia frowned. "Don't you think everyone around us is behind money? There's really no other way around it. Sometimes it forces you to make drastic decisions," Cole argued. "I just feel sorry for my dad. What kind of woman did he marry? Just this kind of trash." Lucia's mood was light. "What she's doing right now has nothing to do with your father. The current Barbara and the old Barbara are 2 different people. You can't be confused. You must believe that at the very least, your father chose Barbara for a reason. He might have seen something in her. I agree she isn't the most pleasing character to come across, but at least your father ensured she had all the comfort while he was still alive," Cole said. Lucia felt the same way when she thought about it. Cole continued, "And I feel that no matter what, your dad will always side with you. Look, he left all his things for you. That means that Barbara and her daughter were nothing compared to you." Lucia nodded. Just as she turned around, her phone rang. Lucia took it out and took a look. Instantly, her expression dropped. Cole didn't even need to ask. He already knew who the caller was. Lucia looked around and found an empty room to slip into, isolating herself from the noise outside. Only then did she pick up. "What?" "So you're out at a bar. Why did you lie to me?" Dalen asked. Lucia's heart skipped a beat. She didn't dare to breathe too loudly. "What do you mean? Are you here too?" she whispered. Dalen did not reply to her and asked directly, "Where are you?" However, his voice was sharper and more malicious than before. This was the only time in her life that she would need to pay such a perverted debt. "I picked up your call from a certain room." Before Lucia could finish her words, the door was pushed open. Dalen appeared in front of her like a cruel demon. Lucia was taken aback. How did he find me so quickly? He even said he was going to look for me. Seeing that Dalen was so angry, Lucia's voice dropped. Why are you here? I'm here with my employees. You don't have to be here. Ouch! Before Lucia could finish her words, she was dragged away by Dalen. Lucia was caught off guard and almost fell to the ground. As she passed by Cole, Lucia yelled, "Cole! Save me! Cole!" Dalen obviously didn't want to embarrass Lucia in front of her employees, and so he decided to take Lucia out through the fire exit. Lucia gritted her teeth. "Dalen, even if you want me to leave, you should at least say hello to the others, right? You're being impolite." Ah! Before Lucia could finish, she was thrown into the car again. Dalen got in the car after her, and the car door closed with a "pa" sound. Lucia looked at the cold and gloomy Dalen and could not help but swallow hard. "Who told you I was here?" she asked. Lucia noticed that Dalen's expression was a little strange. It seemed to be rather serious. What did she do? She was grateful that she hadn't done anything with the male model, or Dalen's appearance would make her very unlucky. But she did nothing. Wasn't Dalen's reaction a bit much? Dalen's face was stiff from her words. He suppressed his anger and said irritably, "You're not allowed to come here in the future." On what basis? Lucia was not convinced. You must have been to this kind of place before. Even if you haven't been here before, you must have frequented other bars. Why can't I come here? I'm a man and you are a woman. What kind of decent woman would come here? Dalen argued. Lucia nearly jumped in joy. This is discrimination. There should be equality between men and women. Dalen raised his eyebrows. Men and women can never be equal. Lucia stared at Dalen's domineering and cold attitude and ground her teeth to calm herself down. Episode 129, Mysterious Message. Unequal? Well, I am naturally unable to reach you. Since you are so formidable, maybe you should sleep alone tonight, Lucia yelled. Dalen lowered his gaze and lazily leaned back. Sure. Lucia was stunned. Why didn't it bother him? Was he really going to let her sleep alone? Why did she feel uneasy? After returning to the mansion, she stood at the door of her previous room and understood why Dalen hadn't gotten upset earlier. The door was locked. Lucia was irate. Dalen's tall body leaned against the wall as he looked at her lazily. Lucia coldly looked at him and went to look for Edward. Open the door. I want to go in and sleep, she ordered him. Madam, even if the door is opened, you still can't sleep, Edward said. Why? Lucia asked, confused. Because the sofa and bed are gone. Lucia's face turned purple. Did Dalen have to be so ruthless? She turned around and angrily said to Dalen, You did this on purpose. Did I? He responded with a smirk. I will just find somewhere else to sleep. With that, Lucia left. What did he say? There's no place for me in this world. Lucia wandered around the large mansion. There must be somewhere she could sleep in this place. But every room was either locked or empty. Lucia was exhausted from running. Returning to the hall, she panted. At this moment, Dalen was sitting on the sofa with his long legs crossed, looking at her calmly. Lucia ignored him and lay down on the sofa. The sofa was very large, much larger than her bed in the bedroom. Thus, sleeping would be very soft and comfortable. Madame, you can't sleep here. It hadn't been Dalen saying that, but John. Why? Lucia was confused and shocked. Keeping the all tidy is my job, so you can't sleep here. If you insist on sleeping, I won't be able to sleep at night, John said. I'll help you tidy up after I sleep. You can sleep without worry, Lucia reasoned. It doesn't seem possible either, said John. Why not? It's one of my jobs to keep people from sleeping on the couch, he said. Lucia understood John was working at his master's discretion. Lucia was so angry that she sat up from the sofa, glared at Dalen, and went to Dalen's room. Where else could she sleep? Dalen was clearly trying to force her hand. However, when she returned to the room, Lucia refused to sleep on the bed. After a shower, she lied on the sofa and nibbled on an apple while holding her phone. Lucia would not go in. In any case, she wanted to cure Dalen's overbearing habit. Then the chat app's alert popped up. Master sent her a smiley face. Lucia sent back an angry face. Master, still awake? Lucia, nope. What do you want? Master, good girl. Call me Master. Lucia, tell me your name. Master, are you in a bad mood? Lucia was shocked. How could he tell? Lucia, how did you know? Master, just a feeling. Lucia, why do you think I'm in a bad mood? Master, is it loneliness? Lucia, you were the one who is lonely. Master, haha. Lucia, don't you have a girlfriend? Master, no. Lucia, no wonder you're so lonely. Master, I have a wife. Lucia flew into a rage. You have a wife, yet you still chat with a female netizen in the middle of the night? Master, what about you? Do you have a boyfriend or are you married? Lucia, I'm married. Master, we're both just as lonely. Lucia, ... Lucia had just tossed her phone to the side and was about to turn on the TV. Then she saw Dalen walk out of the bedroom. His tall body was very oppressive. He looked down at her. Lucia turned her head to face the television. She would rather face the air than him. Come back to bed, he said. I won't. Lucia brusquely refused. Are you sure? Dalen's tone carried a hint of danger. Lucia felt that she shouldn't push him too far or it would backfire on her. So she said, Fine, I can go to bed. However, I have some conditions. As long as it doesn't involve going back to the bar, Dalen responded. Sure, I'm not going to the bar, but you can't be so bossy about everything. And that thing about men and women being unequal, you have to do something about it. It's not fair on your part to have such misogynistic beliefs, Lucia yelled. Dalen felt that he couldn't discuss this with her, so he used action. Lucia looked at Dalen, who was walking towards her. She threw away the remote control and ran to her bedroom. Dalen went after her. Dalen embraced Lucia forcefully after getting on the bed. Ah! Stay away from me, Lucia grunted. The next day, Lucia was playing a game in her office. Her phone rang, but she didn't hear anything. She only saw the message after she finished her game. It was from an unfamiliar cell phone number. After opening it, Lucia's leisurely expression immediately turned grave and stopped. Who had sent this? It must be nonsense, right? Lucia did not dare to believe what she had just read, but she did not want to be confused by such a message. Then her phone rang again. However, it was an unknown number. How could it be an unknown number? Unless someone intentionally didn't want her to know who sent this message. So who was it? Was this message true or false? She needed to check, but how? She couldn't go out to investigate without coming up with a good excuse to give Dalen. A little while later, Lucia called Dalen. I want to go back to my father's house tonight. I'll accompany you, Dalen said. No need. I want to be alone with my father, Lucia responded. Not in a good mood? Dalen lowered his voice. No, I just suddenly thought of him. Lucia tried to make her voice sound sad. The moment Lucia left the company, she saw Dalen's car outside. Lucia got in and said with dissatisfaction, Didn't I say there's no need for you to come? Dalen was upset. Fine, I'll just send you back. He had already come to give her a ride. What else was there to be dissatisfied about? When they arrived at the house, Lucia got out of the car, and Dalen was about to follow, but she waved him back, saying, "Go back, go back." Dalen felt that he was being rejected by that gesture. This was the first time he was disrespected by someone. Dalen slammed the car door shut with a dark expression. Lucia watched as the car drove off in a grandiose manner, then headed towards the main house. It was the same inside as before. The servants still cleaned it every day. Before she came, Lucia had called the servants and said that she wanted to come over to eat. At this moment, she could smell the fragrance of food. Lucia walked in front of her father's portrait. Looking at the familiar face, she stretched out her hand to touch it. Her eyes couldn't help but feel hot with tears. "Dad, did you get sick yourself? Or—" Lucia didn't say it out loud because she couldn't believe it. Episode 130, Why Did You Stop Me? The servant walked over and asked, "Miss Elrod, do you want to start your meal now?" Lucia turned around and looked at the servant. She regretted firing the previous one. She should have kept her. Lucia, once she finished her meal, walked around the villa. Everything was the same as before, even her room. When she went to her father's room, everything was already packed away. Lucia opened the drawer of his desk. Inside, there was a family tree. Mom and Dad, and her. The smiles on their faces were the same. Happy. Happy. How Lucia wished such happiness could stay forever. Lucia returned to her room. Standing in front of the window, she watched as the sky gradually darkened and the streetlights lit up. The tree Dalen had stood under that night was still there. Lucia's heart felt warm when she thought of that scene. It was as if the night air wasn't as cold as it used to be. However, when she thought of the contents of the short message, the smile on Lucia's face vanished. After 9 o'clock, Lucia left the villa. She walked out onto the road and took a taxi to the bar. Once she made it to the bar, she saw all sorts of people going in and out. Nightlife had just begun, and the drinkers were not drunk yet. They did not look that messy. But Lucia's heart was in disarray. She did not rush in, but stood looking at the door. She knew that Barbara and Macy were here. As long as she found them and asked them personally, she knew that she would definitely get the answer she desperately needed. Since Barbara had already fallen to such a state, there was no reason for her to hide it any longer. Lucia hoped that the message was fabricated. She would rather be the cause of her father's illness than discover that it had been because of Barbara and her daughter. Lucia adjusted her breathing and raised her foot to walk inside. "Lucia, how many times have you been here? You do remember the words that I just said yesterday, right?" A deep yet powerful voice came from behind her. Lucia's back stiffened. She couldn't believe that Dalen was here again. Lucia turned around. Dalen's tall and broad body was walking towards her. The dark aura emanating from his body was suffocating. One could not even breathe, let alone get closer and closer. Lucia stood there without moving, because she knew it was useless for her to run. Dalen could easily catch her. Finally, Dalen stood in front of her. His thick shadow loomed over her from above. Lucia felt as if her body was being bound by a net, making her unable to move an inch. "Why aren't you explaining yourself?" Dalen asked. I just need to check on something," Lucia said. "Is this an excuse you came up with?" Dalen asked coldly. Lucia hesitated on whether to tell Dalen or not. If she told him, would Dalen support her? "Come back with me," Dalen said, as he grabbed Lucia's wrist. "Wait, Dalen, I really have something to do." Lucia struggled against his grip. "It's about my father." Dalen's back stiffened. The side of his face flashed in the shadows. "I saw Barbara and Macy here yesterday. They were performing that kind of show behind the glass. And today, when I was at the company, I got a text message saying that my father's illness was caused by the medicine given to him by Barbara and her daughter. So I came to check. I need answers." Lucia told Dalen everything. "Even if you don't want to help me, don't stop me, please." Lucia whispered. Lucia was afraid that Dalen wouldn't believe her, so she showed the text message to Dalen. It was sent to me this afternoon. Dalen glanced at it and then gave the phone to Spencer. Go check it out. Spencer took the phone. Yes, sir. I called it. It was an unknown number, Lucia said. We'll know after we check it out. Dalen's face was dark. Lucia had no objections to Dalen's actions. She also wanted to know who it was. However, her problem wasn't with the sender of the message, but was with Barbara and her daughter. Dalen, I came here to investigate this matter with Barbara and her daughter. As long as I ask them clearly, I will know if this is true or not, Lucia said. You believe they killed him just because of a short message? Dalen's expression did not look good. Then what should I believe? I don't want to believe it either, but Dalen, to be honest, I have my doubts about my dad's condition. He had always been in good health. He rarely sneezed or caught a cold. So why did his internal organs suddenly fail? Isn't that strange? It didn't make me suspicious at the time, but now I think it would be better to find out, Lucia said. I'll look into it. Let's go back, Dalen said. I don't want to. Lucia forcefully retracted her hand. Dalen didn't expect her to be so resistant and allowed her to break free for a moment. With a frown, he glared at Lucia. I want to check myself. If you don't help me, then don't stop me. That's my only request, Lucia said in a low voice. She felt as if all her strength had been expended. She really didn't know how to face this. She was at a loss. Her mind was in a mess. She turned around and was about to run into the bar. However, she was quickly hugged by Dalen. What are you doing? Let me go! Lucia struggled. However, no matter how much strength she had, she couldn't compare to Dalen's might. It was like a thick chain wrapped around her slender waist. She couldn't get rid of him no matter how hard she tried. Finally, she resigned to her fate of being taken to the car and broke down in Dalen's arms. Lucia sat on Dalen's firm thighs, unable to do anything. Her struggles were futile except for the effort she expended. Why did you stop me? Lucia asked, trying to find her voice between the sobs. That place is not nice. The people there don't really have other people's best interests in mind. You are clearly too upset with the information you've just received about your father. I'm not saying your emotions aren't justified. All I'm asking of you is to give me some time to investigate who sent you this message before you do something you might regret later. Dalen knew how smart Lucia was. However, Dalen was slightly shocked by how quickly she figured it out. Although an unfathomable person like Dalen would never reveal his emotions on his face.